In a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood in the suburbs, two identical twin boys named Marcus and Michael lived with their loving parents. From the moment they were born, the twins shared everything: clothes, toys, secrets, and even dreams. Their bond was unbreakable, and their laughter filled every corner of their home. But life took an unexpected turn when their parents decided to enroll them at St. Reginald's Academy, one of the most prestigious private schools in the country. St. Reginald's was known for its high academic standards, strict rules, and wealthy student body. It was the kind of school where children wore polished uniforms, carried expensive backpacks, and spoke with confidence about their future careers as doctors, lawyers, or CEOs. For Marcus and Michael, attending this school felt like stepping into another world, a world that seemed far removed from the modest lifestyle they were used to. On their first day at St. Reginald's, the twins arrived wearing neatly pressed uniforms, their shoes shining brightly. They walked side by side, clutching each other's hands nervously as they entered the grand halls of the academy. The building itself was intimidating, with tall ceilings, marble floors, and portraits of former headmasters hanging on the walls. To Marcus and Michael, it almost felt like walking into a museum rather than a school. The other students immediately noticed the twins. At first, some were curious about the new arrivals. "Are they really twins?" one girl whispered to her friend during assembly. "They look exactly alike." Another boy pointed out how they both had dark brown skin, which stood out sharply against the predominantly pale faces around them. While most conversations started innocently enough, it didn't take long for things to take a negative turn. By lunchtime on their very first day, Marcus and Michael began to realize they didn't quite fit in. As they sat together under a shady tree in the courtyard eating sandwiches prepared by their mom, a group of older boys approached them. One of them smirked and said loudly, "Hey, look who we have here, the Shadow Twins." The others laughed, joining in the mockery. "Yeah, you guys look like you belong on the streets, not in our school," another chimed in cruelly. Marcus and Michael froze, unsure of how to respond. They exchanged glances, silently agreeing not to react. Instead, they quietly packed up their lunch and moved to a quieter spot behind the library. Though they tried to brush off the comments, the words stung deeply. Over the next few days, the teasing continued. Some kids called them names like street fighters or thugs, while others spread rumors that the twins came from troubled families. None of these accusations were true, but the constant negativity weighed heavily on Marcus and Michael. What made the situation even more ironic was that no one at St. Reginald's realized just how skilled the twins actually were. Since they were 6 years old, Marcus and Michael had been training in martial arts under the guidance of their grandfather, a retired karate master. Every Saturday morning, rain or shine, the boys would travel to their grandfather's dojo, where he taught them discipline, focus, and self-defense. By the age of 12, both twins had earned black belts in taekwondo and judo. Yet their parents had always emphasized the importance of using their skills responsibly. "Never fight unless you absolutely have to," their father had told them, repeatedly. So, despite being capable of defending themselves, Marcus and Michael chose to endure the bullying without retaliation. As weeks passed, the bullying only grew worse. During recess, the twins often found themselves isolated, sitting alone on benches or hiding in corners to avoid drawing attention. In class, some students deliberately ignored them, refusing to partner with them for group projects. Even teachers seemed oblivious to the tension, focusing solely on maintaining order in the classroom. Marcus and Michael tried to stay strong, reminding themselves that education was important and that this phase would eventually pass. But deep down, they couldn't help feeling like outsiders in a place where they didn't belong. One particularly difficult afternoon, Marcus confided in his brother after school. "I hate it here," he admitted, his voice trembling. "Why does everyone treat us like we're bad people? We haven't done anything wrong." Michael listened quietly, his heart aching for his twin. He wanted to tell Marcus that everything would be okay, but he wasn't sure if he believed it himself. All they could do was hold on to hope that somehow things would get better. Despite the challenges they faced, Marcus and Michael refused to let bitterness consume them. They still woke up early every morning, dressed in their uniforms and went to school with determination. They studied hard, excelling in subjects like math and science, earning praise from their teachers. Yet, no amount of academic success could shield them from the emotional toll of being ostracized. Each day felt like a battle, and though they fought silently, the scars were beginning to show. At home, their parents noticed subtle changes in their behavior. Marcus, usually cheerful and talkative, had become withdrawn. Michael, who loved playing soccer in the backyard, now spent hours alone in his room reading books. Concerned, their mother asked them gently one evening, "Is something bothering you at school?" Both boys hesitated before shaking their heads. They didn't want to worry their parents, knowing how much effort had gone into securing their spots at St. Reginald's. Unbeknownst to the twins, their struggles had caught the eye of someone else, Mr. Thompson, the school janitor. A kind-hearted man in his late 50s, Mr. Thompson had worked at St. Reginald's for over 20 years. Over time, he had developed a keen sense of observation, noticing the dynamics between students and staff. He had seen many kids come and go, some thriving and others struggling to adapt. When he witnessed the way Marcus and Michael were treated, it stirred memories of his own childhood, growing up poor and facing discrimination in a predominantly white neighborhood. One chilly morning, as the twins sat quietly on a bench near the playground, Mr. Thompson approached them. Holding a broom in one hand and a warm smile on his face, he greeted them warmly. "You two seem like good kids," he said softly. "Don't let anyone make you feel small. You've got strength inside you. You just need to find it." His words lingered in their minds long after he left. For the first time since starting, at St. Reginald's, Marcus and Michael felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way to rise above the negativity surrounding them. Little did they know, this encounter would mark the beginning of a journey towards self-discovery and resilience, one that would change not only their lives but also the lives of those around them. The words Mr. Thompson had spoken to Marcus and Michael lingered in their minds for days. "You've got strength inside you. You just need to find it." At first, the twins weren't sure what he meant. How could they possibly feel strong when they were constantly being teased and pushed aside? But as they thought about it more, they began to realize that maybe there was truth in what he said. Strength wasn't always about fighting back. It could also mean standing tall even when others tried to knock you down. Determined to prove themselves, not to their bullies, but to themselves, Marcus and Michael started making small changes. They stopped avoiding eye contact with their classmates during class discussions and instead sat up straighter, raising their hands confidently when they knew the answers. In gym class, they participated fully, showing off their agility and coordination, without drawing unnecessary attention to themselves. Slowly but surely, their quiet resilience began to catch the eye of someone who mattered, Ms. Harper, their homeroom teacher. Ms. Harper was a kind yet observant woman in her early 30s. She had been teaching at St. Reginald's for 5 years and prided herself on creating a supportive environment for all her students. However, she couldn't ignore the tension between Marcus, Michael, and some of their peers. One afternoon, while grading papers at her desk, she noticed how the twins sat together at the back of the classroom, quietly working on an assignment. Their body language was different now. They no longer slouched or avoided interaction. Intrigued, she decided to speak with them privately after school. "Marcus, Michael," Ms. Harper called out gently as the other students filed out of the room. The twins froze for a moment before walking hesitantly toward her desk. "Do you have a minute?" she asked, gesturing for them to sit. Her tone was warm, but Marcus and Michael exchanged nervous glances. They weren't used to teachers paying special attention to them unless it involved trouble. "I've noticed something interesting lately," Ms. Harper began, leaning forward slightly. "Both of you seem stronger somehow, more confident. Did something change recently?" The question caught them off guard. Neither boy knew how to respond at first. Finally, Marcus spoke up softly. "We're just trying to do better, miss." Ms. Harper smiled warmly. "Well, whatever you're doing, keep it up. You're setting a great example for everyone else." Then, after a pause, she added, "Have you ever thought about joining our leadership program? It's an after-school initiative designed to help students develop skills like teamwork, problem solving, and public speaking. I think you'd both be perfect candidates." Marcus and Michael looked at each other, surprised. No one had ever suggested they join anything before, let alone something as prestigious as the leadership program. Unsure of what to say, they simply nodded. "Thank you, miss," Michael replied politely. Ms. Harper handed them flyers with details about the program and encouraged them to attend the next session. That evening, as they discussed the invitation with their parents, Marcus and Michael felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. "It sounds amazing," Marcus said, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "But what if the other kids laugh at us again? What if we mess up?" Their father placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Sometimes, son, you have to take risks to grow. Trust yourselves, and trust that people will see your worth eventually." With their parents' encouragement, the twins decided to give the leadership program a try. On the day of their first meeting, they arrived early, clutching notebooks and pens tightly. The room was already filling up with students, many of whom they recognized from their classes. Some glanced curiously at them, while others ignored them completely. Marcus and Michael chose seats near the back, feeling slightly out of place among the chatter. When Ms. Harper entered the room, the atmosphere shifted. She greeted everyone warmly before diving into the session's topic: communication and assertiveness. Through interactive activities, role-playing exercises, and group discussions, the participants learned how to express themselves clearly and respectfully. For Marcus and Michael, this was uncharted territory. They had spent so much time avoiding conflict that the idea of speaking up felt foreign, even scary. During one exercise, Ms. Harper divided the group into pairs and asked them to practice, delivering feedback constructively. Marcus was paired with a girl named Sarah, who was known for her sharp tongue and competitive nature. As they worked through the activity, Marcus found himself struggling to articulate his thoughts. Sensing his discomfort, Sarah smirked. "Not used to talking, huh?" she remarked snidely. For a brief moment, anger flared within Marcus. He wanted to snap back to defend himself against her insult, but then he remembered Mr. Thompson's advice. Strength isn't about fighting fire with fire. Taking a deep breath, Marcus responded calmly. "I'm here to learn, same as you. If you want to help, we can work together. Otherwise, I'll figure it out myself." Sarah blinked, momentarily taken aback. She hadn't expected such a composed response. After a pause, she muttered, "Fine. Let's get this over with." Though the exchange ended awkwardly, Marcus walked away feeling proud of himself. For the first time, he had stood his ground without resorting to anger or silence. Meanwhile, Michael was paired with a boy named Ethan, who seemed indifferent to the entire exercise. When it came time for Michael to give feedback, Ethan rolled, his eyes dramatically. "This is dumb," he muttered under his breath. Instead of reacting defensively, Michael smiled politely and said, "Maybe it feels that way now, but these skills might come in handy later. Who knows?" Ethan shrugged but didn't argue further. Later, during a break, he approached Michael, casually. "You're not like most people here," he admitted grudgingly. "You don't let stuff get to you." Michael shrugged modestly. "I guess I've learned to pick my battles." As the weeks went by, Marcus and Michael continued, attending the leadership sessions, growing more comfortable with each passing meeting. They discovered that their unique perspectives often enriched group discussions, earning nods of approval from Ms. Harper. Other students, too, began warming up to them, not because they suddenly became friends, but because the twins demonstrated qualities rarely seen at St. Reginald's: humility, patience, and quiet determination. One Friday afternoon, Ms. Harper announced a special project for the leadership program, organizing a school-wide assembly focused on themes like kindness, inclusivity, and respect. Each participant would play a role in planning and executing the event, from designing posters to preparing speeches. When she asked for volunteers to lead specific tasks, Marcus hesitated before raising his hand. "I'll help with the speeches," he offered timidly. To his surprise, several students nodded approvingly, including Sarah, who gave him a small smile. Michael, inspired by his brother's courage, volunteered to assist with logistics. Together, the twins threw themselves into the project, pouring hours of effort into ensuring its success. They collaborated with classmates they had never spoken to before, breaking down barriers one conversation at a time. Even those who had once mocked them began treating them differently, not with outright friendship but with a newfound respect. Behind the scenes, Mr. Thompson kept a close watch on the twins' progress, seeing how they carried themselves with dignity despite past hardships filled him with pride. One afternoon, as he swept the hallway outside the leadership room, he stopped briefly to chat with Marcus and Michael. "You're doing great work," he told them sincerely. "Remember, real strength isn't about winning fights, it's about inspiring others to be better." The twins nodded, grateful for his guidance. They realized now that their journey wasn't just about surviving bullying, it was about becoming role models for others facing similar challenges. By embracing their inner strength and refusing to let negativity define them, Marcus and Michael were slowly transforming not only their own lives but also the culture of St. Reginald's Academy. By the time the assembly rolled around, anticipation buzzed through the school. Students filed into the auditorium, curious about what the leadership program had planned. As the lights dimmed and the stage came alive with presentations, speeches, and performances, the message of unity and acceptance resonated deeply with everyone present. And when Marcus stepped forward to deliver the closing remarks, a heartfelt speech about overcoming adversity and finding strength in diversity, the audience erupted into applause. In that moment, Marcus and Michael knew they had turned a corner. Their struggles hadn't disappeared overnight, but they had found a way to rise above them. More importantly, they had inspired others to do the same. What started as a whisper of hope planted by Mr. Thompson had blossomed into a movement, one that promised to leave a lasting impact on St. Reginald's and beyond. The school-wide assembly organized by the leadership program marked a turning point for Marcus and Michael. For weeks, they had poured their energy into planning every detail, from designing colorful posters that lined the hallways to rehearsing speeches late into the night. When the day finally arrived, the twins felt a mix of excitement and nerves. As students filled the auditorium, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some were curious about what the leadership program had prepared, while others whispered cynically, doubting whether anything meaningful could come from such an event. When the lights dimmed and the presentations began, however, skepticism slowly gave way to engagement. The program opened with a short video montage showing acts of kindness captured around campus, students helping each other carry books, teachers offering extra support, even small gestures like holding doors open. It was simple, yet powerful, setting the tone for the theme of inclusivity and respect. Next came performances, poetry readings, skits and songs written and performed by students in the leadership group. Each piece highlighted struggles faced by individuals who didn't fit the norm at St. Reginald's, resonating deeply with many attendees. But it was Marcus's closing speech that left the most lasting impression. Standing center stage. Under the spotlight, he took a deep breath before beginning. His voice trembled slightly at first, but as he spoke, it grew steadier. "We've all heard words meant to hurt," he said, his eyes scanning the audience. "Words that make us feel small, invisible, or unworthy. I know because my brother and I have lived through it." A hush fell over the room. Even those who had mocked Marcus and Michael in the past leaned forward, listening intently. He continued, "Being different isn't easy. But being different doesn't mean you're less. In fact, it means you bring something unique to the table, something valuable. And if we can learn to embrace our differences instead of fearing them, we'll be stronger as a community." By the time Marcus finished speaking, the auditorium erupted into applause. Students clapped enthusiastically, some even standing up to cheer. Michael, seated in the front row, watched his brother with pride. This wasn't just a victory for them. It was a step toward changing the culture of their school. In the days following the assembly, Marcus and Michael noticed subtle shifts in how people treated them. While not everyone became friendly overnight, there was a noticeable decrease in overt hostility. A few classmates who had previously ignored them now greeted them with nods or smiles. Even Sarah, the sharp-tongued girl from the leadership program, approached Marcus during lunch one day. "That speech was pretty good," she admitted grudgingly. "I didn't think you had it in you." Marcus grinned, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "Thanks. I didn't either, honestly." As the twins navigated these changes, they also found themselves reflecting on their martial arts training. Their grandfather's lessons had always emphasized discipline, focus, and self-control, not just physical strength. Growing up, Marcus and Michael had practiced countless hours perfecting kicks, punches, and blocks. But the true essence of martial arts lay in its philosophy, using skills responsibly and only when necessary. This lesson came into sharp focus one Friday afternoon. During gym class, the activity for the day was sparring, a common exercise designed to improve agility and teamwork. However, when the instructor paired Marcus with Brandon, one of the school's biggest bullies, tension crackled in the air. Brandon was tall, muscular, and known for his aggressive behavior both inside and outside the classroom. He smirked as he faced Marcus, clearly expecting an easy win. "Let's see what you've got, Shadow Twin." Brandon taunted loudly enough for nearby students to hear. Several classmates snickered, anticipating a spectacle. Marcus clenched his fists briefly but quickly relaxed them, remembering his grandfather's teachings. He stepped back into a defensive stance, waiting calmly for Brandon to make the first move. When Brandon lunged forward with a punch aimed at Marcus's face, the entire gym fell silent. To everyone's astonishment, Marcus dodged effortlessly, sidestepping with precision. Another swing followed, and again Marcus evaded it smoothly, his movements fluid and controlled. With each failed attempt, Brandon grew more frustrated, throwing wilder punches that only made him look clumsy. Finally, seizing an opening, Marcus executed a swift takedown, pinning Brandon gently but firmly to the mat. The room erupted into gasps and murmurs. No one had expected the quiet boy they'd underestimated to possess such skill. After holding Brandon down for a moment, Marcus released him and extended a hand to help him up. "Good match," he said simply, his tone respectful, despite the circumstances. Brandon hesitated before accepting the gesture, clearly embarrassed. Yeah. "Good match," he mumbled, avoiding eye contact. The instructor blew his whistle, signaling the end of the session, but the impact of what had just happened lingered long after the students returned to their regular routines. Word of Marcus's performance spread quickly throughout the school. By Monday morning, nearly everyone knew about the sparring incident. Some students approached Marcus and Michael to congratulate them, while others expressed disbelief. "You're black belts?" one boy asked incredulously. "Why didn't you say anything before?" Michael shrugged modestly. "It's not something we talk about much. We train because it helps us stay disciplined, not to show off." Their humility earned them even more admiration. Teachers, too, took notice. Ms. Harper pulled the twins aside after class one day to commend them. "What you did in the gym was remarkable, not just your technique, but your restraint. You showed incredible maturity." Marcus and Michael exchanged glances, smiling faintly. They hadn't fought back earlier in the year not because they couldn't, but because they believed violence shouldn't be their first response. Now, though, they understood that sometimes demonstrating strength could inspire change. The ripple effects of that single sparring match continued to unfold. Brandon, humbled by the experience, apologized publicly to Marcus and Michael during homeroom. "I'm sorry for how I've treated you guys," he admitted, his voice sincere. "I was wrong." Other students followed suit, admitting they had misjudged the twins based on stereotypes. Slowly but surely, the toxic atmosphere that had once plagued St. Reginald's began to dissipate. Encouraged by the positive momentum, Marcus and Michael decided to take their advocacy further. Inspired by their grandfather's belief in giving back to the community, they proposed starting a peer support group at school. The idea was simple: create a safe space where students could share their experiences, discuss challenges, and offer encouragement to one another. Ms. Harper loved the concept and offered her full support, helping the twins secure permission from the administration. The first meeting of the peer support group drew a surprisingly large turnout. Students from different grades and backgrounds gathered in the library, eager to participate. Marcus opened the session by sharing his own story, the bullying, the isolation, and how he and Michael had worked to overcome it. "We're not saying, everything will get better overnight," he concluded. "But if we stick together and lift each other up, we can make this place better for everyone." Michael added, "And remember, strength isn't about fighting back all the time. Sometimes it's about knowing when to walk away or when to stand your ground without losing yourself." Their words struck a chord with many attendees. One girl tearfully confessed that she had been struggling with anxiety since transferring to St. Reginald's, feeling like she didn't belong. Another boy admitted he had been teased for his accent and feared speaking up in class. Hearing these stories reinforced the twins' belief that they weren't alone in their struggles, and that their efforts to foster understanding were making a difference. Over time, the peer support group became a cornerstone of student life at St. Reginald's. Members met regularly, organizing workshops on topics like conflict resolution, mental health awareness, and celebrating diversity. Through these initiatives, Marcus and Michael inspired others to embrace empathy and kindness, creating a ripple effect that transformed the school's culture. Parents began noticing the changes too. At parent-teacher conferences, several mothers and fathers praised the shift in attitudes among students, crediting the twins for sparking meaningful conversations about acceptance and inclusion. Even the headmaster acknowledged the twins' contributions during a school assembly, calling them role models for their peers. At home, Marcus and Michael's parents beamed with pride. Though they had worried about sending their sons to such an elite institution, they now saw how much the boys had grown, not just academically but emotionally and socially. Their grandfather, watching from afar, felt immense satisfaction knowing his teachings had prepared them for challenges beyond the dojo. For Marcus and Michael, the journey wasn't easy, but it was worth it. They learned that real strength lies, not in dominance but in compassion, not in aggression but in resilience. And though they remained humble, they knew deep down that they had changed the world around them, one act of courage at a time. The peer support group quickly became a beacon of hope at St. Reginald's Academy. What started as a small initiative led by Marcus and Michael grew into something far greater than anyone had anticipated. Students who had once kept their struggles hidden now found solace in sharing their stories with others who understood. The meetings were held weekly in the library, a quiet space where everyone felt safe to speak openly without judgment. Each session began with Marcus or Michael sharing a brief reflection, a lesson they had learned from their martial arts training, a story about overcoming adversity, or simply words of encouragement. One particular meeting stood out. A freshman, named Ava, who rarely spoke in class, hesitantly raised her hand during the discussion. Her voice trembled as she recounted how she had been teased for wearing glasses that were too big and clothes that weren't designer labels. "I thought no one would care if I left," she admitted, tears streaming down her face. "But being here, hearing all of you talk about your own struggles makes me feel like maybe I'm not alone." The room fell silent, every pair of eyes fixed on Ava. Then slowly hands began reaching out, some offering tissues, others patting her shoulder gently. One senior boy named Liam, who had initially joined the group out of curiosity, leaned forward and said, "You're stronger than you think, Ava. We see you and we've got your back." His words sparked a round of nods and murmurs of agreement. By the end of the meeting, Ava was smiling faintly, visibly comforted by the support she had received. Moments like these reinforced why Marcus and Michael had started the group in the first place. They wanted to create a community where differences were celebrated rather than ridiculed, where kindness replaced cruelty. But what surprised them most was how much they themselves continued to grow through the process. Leading the group taught them valuable lessons about empathy, leadership, and the power of vulnerability. For the first time, they realized that their experiences could serve not only as a source of strength for themselves, but also as inspiration for others. As the weeks turned into months, the impact of the peer support group extended beyond its members. Word spread throughout the school about the positive changes happening within the group, prompting even those who hadn't faced bullying to take notice. Teachers reported seeing increased collaboration among students in classrooms, while counselors noted fewer incidents of conflict in the hallways. Even parents marveled at the transformation, sharing stories of how their children came home talking excitedly about new friendships and inclusive activities. Ms. Harper, who had been instrumental in supporting the twins' efforts, decided to take things a step further. She proposed expanding the peer support model to include workshops led by outside speakers, experts in areas like mental health, diversity training, and conflict resolution. When the administration approved the idea, Marcus and Michael were thrilled. They worked closely with Ms. Harper to organize the first workshop, inviting a motivational speaker named Dr. Elena Martinez, a psychologist specializing in adolescent resilience. On the day of the workshop, the auditorium buzzed with anticipation. Nearly the entire student body attended, filling rows of seats usually reserved for assemblies and performances. Dr. Martinez began her presentation with an engaging story about her own childhood struggles growing up as the daughter of immigrants in a predominantly white neighborhood. "I know what it feels like to be different," she said, her voice warm yet powerful. "But difference isn't something to fear. It's something to embrace. It's what makes us unique, and it's what gives us the ability to connect with others in meaningful ways." Her words resonated deeply with the audience. Throughout the session, she encouraged students to reflect on their own biases and assumptions, challenging them to think critically about how they treated one another. She introduced interactive exercises designed to build trust and understanding, such as pairing students with someone they didn't know well and asking them to find 3 things they had in common. By the end of the workshop, many participants walked away feeling closer to their peers and more aware of the importance of inclusivity. The success of the workshop inspired Marcus and Michael to dream bigger. They approached Ms. Harper with an idea, hosting an annual event called Unity Day, dedicated to celebrating diversity and fostering connections across grade levels. The concept excited both Ms. Harper and the administration, who gave their full support. Planning for Unity Day became a school-wide effort, with students volunteering to design posters, organize activities, and coordinate performances. When the big day arrived, the campus transformed into a vibrant celebration of culture and individuality. Booths lined the courtyard, each showcasing different traditions, languages, and hobbies. There were dance performances, poetry readings, and even a cooking station where students shared recipes passed down through generations. At the center of it all stood Marcus and Michael, overseeing the festivities with pride. They wore matching T-shirts emblazoned with the slogan, "Stronger Together," a phrase that had become synonymous with their mission. One of the highlights of Unity Day was a panel discussion featuring students from diverse backgrounds. Each speaker shared their personal journey, highlighting challenges they had overcome and lessons they had learned along the way. Among them was Ethan, the boy who had once dismissed Michael's efforts in the leadership program. Now, he stood confidently before the crowd, recounting how Marcus and Michael's example had inspired him to confront his own prejudices. "I used to think people were either cool or uncool based on superficial stuff," he admitted. "But this year has shown me that real coolness comes from being kind, open-minded, and willing to listen." The audience erupted into applause, and Marcus couldn't help but grin at his brother. This was proof that their hard work was paying off, not just for themselves, but for the entire school community. Despite the progress they had made, Marcus and Michael knew there was still work to be done. While overt bullying had decreased significantly, subtle forms of exclusion persisted. Some students still formed cliques, whispering behind closed doors or rolling their eyes when someone tried to join their circle. Recognizing this, the twins decided to focus their efforts on addressing these quieter forms of discrimination. They introduced a new initiative called Kindness Ambassadors, recruiting volunteers to act as mediators whenever conflicts arose. These ambassadors underwent training sessions conducted by Ms. Harper and Dr. Martinez, learning strategies for de-escalating tensions and promoting dialogue. Armed with this knowledge, the ambassadors roamed the halls, stepping in whenever they witnessed hurtful behavior. Their presence served as a reminder that respect and inclusion were non-negotiable values at St. Reginald's. Marcus and Michael also took it upon themselves to mentor younger students, particularly those entering the school for the first time. During orientation week, they hosted a special session for incoming freshmen, sharing tips on navigating the challenges of high school life. Don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong, Marcus advised earnestly. If you ever need help, reach out. There are people here who care about you, including us. Their message struck a chord with the newcomers, many of whom expressed gratitude for the guidance. One shy girl named Sophie lingered after the session, thanking the twins for their advice. I was so nervous about coming here, she confessed. But hearing you guys talk makes me feel like maybe I can handle it. By the end of the school year, the changes at St. Reginald's were undeniable. The toxic atmosphere that had once defined the institution had given way to a spirit of unity and mutual respect. Awards ceremonies highlighted Marcus and Michael's contributions, recognizing them not only for their academic achievements, but also for their role in shaping the school's culture. Parents wrote heartfelt letters to the administration, praising the twins for inspiring their children to become better versions of themselves. At home, their parents couldn't have been prouder. Watching Marcus and Michael navigate the challenges of St. Reginald's with grace and determination filled them with awe. Their grandfather, too, felt immense pride, knowing that his teachings had equipped the boys with the tools they needed to thrive. "You've done more than survive," he told them one evening during dinner. "You've changed lives, including your own." Reflecting on their journey, Marcus and Michael realized how much they had grown since their first day at St. Reginald's. Back then, they had been two scared boys trying to blend into the background, hoping no one would notice them. Now, they were leaders, role models for their peers, and advocates for change. They had discovered that true strength wasn't about physical prowess or dominance. It was about standing firm in your values, lifting others up, and refusing to let negativity define you. Though they remained humble, Marcus and Michael knew their legacy would endure long after they graduated. Through their actions, they had planted seeds of kindness and acceptance that would continue to grow within the walls of St. Reginald's, and perhaps beyond. As they looked toward the future, they carried with them the lessons they had learned, that adversity can be a catalyst for growth, that compassion is a form of courage, and that even the smallest acts of bravery can spark monumental change. As the school year drew to a close, Marcus and Michael found themselves reflecting on how far they had come. What began as a nightmare of bullying and isolation had transformed into a journey of self-discovery, resilience, and leadership. The twins no longer saw themselves as victims. Instead, they viewed their struggles as stepping stones that had shaped them into stronger, more compassionate individuals. Their efforts to foster inclusivity and kindness at St. Reginald's had not only changed the school's culture but also inspired others to embrace their own potential for growth. One of the most profound changes occurred within Brandon, the boy who had once been one of their biggest tormentors. After the sparring match in gym class, where Marcus demonstrated both skill and restraint, Brandon had undergone a quiet transformation. He stopped mocking the twins and began seeking opportunities to make amends. At first, his actions were small, holding the door open for Marcus or offering a polite nod in the hallway. Over time, however, these gestures evolved into meaningful connections. During lunch breaks, Brandon occasionally joined Marcus and Michael under the shade of their favorite tree, engaging in conversations about sports, movies, and even their shared dreams for the future. "What made you guys stick it out?" Brandon asked one afternoon, his tone genuine. "After everything we did to you, I thought you'd hate this place." Marcus shrugged modestly. "We didn't want to let negativity win. Besides, everyone deserves a second chance, including you." Brandon nodded thoughtfully, his expression softening. "Thanks for giving me one. Most people wouldn't have." This newfound friendship between the twins and Brandon became a symbol of hope for others at St. Reginald's. It showed that even those entrenched in harmful behavior could change when met with patience and understanding. Other students took notice, realizing that forgiveness and reconciliation were possible if approached with sincerity. The ripple effects of Marcus and Michael's influence extended beyond their immediate peers. Inspired by their example, several students formed smaller groups dedicated to promoting positivity and inclusion. One such group focused on organizing community service projects, while another launched an anti-bullying campaign featuring posters and videos created by students. These initiatives complemented the work of the peer support group, creating a network of programs designed to uplift and empower. Among the most impactful projects was the Wall of Strength, an idea conceived by Sarah, the sharp-tongued girl from the leadership program. She proposed dedicating a section of the school's main hallway to showcasing stories of resilience. Students were invited to submit anonymous notes detailing moments when they overcame challenges or supported someone else through hardship. Each note was pinned to the wall, forming a mosaic of courage and compassion. On the day the Wall of Strength was unveiled, students gathered excitedly to read the contributions. Some entries were humorous, recounting funny mishaps turned into life lessons. Others were deeply moving, sharing tales of loss, illness, or discrimination overcome with determination. As Marcus and Michael stood back, watching their classmates engage with the display, they felt a surge of pride. This was proof that their message of strength and unity had taken root in ways they never imagined. Despite the progress, Marcus and Michael knew there would always be room for improvement. They understood that cultural shifts required ongoing effort and vigilance. To ensure sustainability, they worked closely with Ms. Harper and Dr. Martinez to develop a mentorship program for incoming students. Upperclassmen trained as mentors would guide freshmen through the challenges of adapting to St. Reginald's, providing advice, encouragement, and a listening ear whenever needed. During one planning session, Michael voiced a concern. "What happens after we graduate? Will all this just fade away?" Ms. Harper smiled reassuringly. "Change doesn't disappear because its creators leave. You've planted seeds here, seeds of empathy, respect, and leadership. Those will continue to grow long after you're gone." Her words resonated deeply with the twins. They realized that their legacy wasn't tied to their physical presence at St. Reginald's, but rather to the values they had instilled in others. By empowering their peers to carry the torch, they ensured that their impact would endure. As graduation approached, Marcus and Michael prepared for their final challenge, delivering speeches at the end-of-year ceremony. Both boys had been selected as representatives of their class, tasked with summarizing their experiences and offering parting advice to younger students. For days leading up to the event, they practiced tirelessly, refining their words until they felt confident in their delivery. When the day arrived, the auditorium buzzed with anticipation. Parents, teachers, and students filled the seats, eager to celebrate the achievements of the graduating class. As Marcus stepped onto the stage, he paused briefly, taking in the sea of faces before him. His voice rang clear and steady as he began. "When we first came to St. Reginald's, my brother and I felt like outsiders. We were different not just in how we looked but in how we carried ourselves. People judged us without knowing us, and for a while, we let those judgments define us. But then something shifted. We realized that true strength isn't about proving yourself to others. It's about staying true to who you are no matter what." He glanced at Michael, who sat in the front row, nodding encouragingly. "We learned that adversity can either break you or build you. For us, it built us. It taught us to stand tall, to speak up, and to lift others along the way. And now, as we prepare to leave this chapter behind, I want to remind you all of one thing. Your differences are your superpowers. Don't hide them. Embrace them. Use them to connect, to inspire, and to create a world where everyone belongs." Applause erupted throughout the auditorium, echoing long after Marcus returned to his seat. When it was Michael's turn, he approached the podium with equal poise. "My brother said it perfectly," he began, "but I want to add something. Change doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen alone. It takes courage, patience, and teamwork. Together, we've started something incredible here, a movement toward kindness, acceptance, and unity. Let's keep it going. Let's show the world what it means to be strong, not just individually, but collectively." By the time Michael finished speaking, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Teachers wiped tears from their cheeks, Parents hugged their children tightly, and students cheered loudly, proud to be part of a community transformed by love and perseverance. In the weeks following graduation, Marcus and Michael prepared to embark on new adventures. While they planned to attend separate colleges, they promised to stay connected, supporting each other as they navigated the next phase of their lives. Before leaving, they visited Mr. Thompson, the janitor whose wisdom had guided them during their darkest days. "Thank you," Marcus said sincerely, shaking the older man's hand. "Your words changed everything for us." Mr. Thompson chuckled, warmly. "I didn't do much. You two did the hard work. Remember this. Wherever you go, carry the light you brought to this place. The world needs more people like you." With heavy hearts yet hopeful spirits, Marcus and Michael bid farewell to St. Reginald's. Though they were leaving behind familiar faces and cherished memories, they carried with them the lessons they had learned, that strength lies in vulnerability, that leadership is rooted in service, and that kindness has the power to transform even the most hostile environments. Years later, as adults, Marcus and Michael continued advocating for equality and inclusion. They founded a nonprofit organization aimed at teaching martial arts and leadership skills to underserved youth, combining their grandfather's teachings with their own experiences. Through workshops, mentorship programs, and community outreach, they inspired countless young people to rise above adversity and embrace their unique gifts. Looking back on their journey, Marcus and Michael often marveled at how much had changed since their days at St. Reginald's. From bullied boys to respected leaders, they had defied expectations and rewritten their story. More importantly, they had shown that true strength isn't defined by muscles or titles, it's measured by character. And though they remained humble, they knew deep down that they had left an indelible mark on the world, one act of courage at a time. Years after leaving St. Reginald's Academy, Marcus and Michael found themselves standing side by side once again. But this time, not as students navigating a challenging environment, but as leaders shaping the future. Their nonprofit organization, Rising Warriors Glausen, had grown into a beacon of hope for countless young people across the country. What began as a small initiative in their parents' garage had evolved into a nationwide movement, empowering underserved youth to overcome adversity through martial arts, mentorship, and education. The twins poured their hearts into every aspect of Rising Warriors. They traveled to schools, community centers, and juvenile detention facilities, sharing their story and teaching skills that went far beyond punches and kicks. Each session started with a lesson on discipline and respect, values instilled in them by their grandfather, and ended with discussions about resilience and self-worth. For many participants, these workshops were life-changing. Children who once felt invisible discovered confidence within themselves, while teenagers burdened by anger or frustration learned to channel their emotions constructively. One unforgettable moment came during a workshop at an inner-city youth center. A shy 10-year-old boy named Jamal hesitated when asked to demonstrate a basic taekwondo move. His peers laughed nervously, expecting him to fail. But when Marcus knelt beside him and offered encouragement, something remarkable happened. With determination etched on his face, Jamal executed the technique perfectly, earning cheers from the group. "See?" Marcus said with a proud smile. "You've got strength inside you. You just needed someone to believe in you." That belief was the cornerstone of everything Marcus and Michael did. They understood firsthand how isolation and judgment could crush a person's spirit, which is why they worked tirelessly to create spaces where everyone felt valued. By fostering connections and celebrating individuality, they helped participants realize that their differences were strengths, not weaknesses. As news of Rising Warriors spread, so did opportunities for collaboration. Schools invited the twins to speak at assemblies, corporations sought their expertise for employee training programs, and media outlets highlighted their work in documentaries and interviews. Marcus and Michael approached each opportunity with humility, always emphasizing that their success wasn't theirs alone. It belonged to the communities they served. Their impact reached even further when they published a book titled Shadows to Strength, Rising Above Adversity, The memoir chronicled their journey from bullied boys at St. Reginald's to advocates for change, offering practical advice and heartfelt reflections along the way. Readers resonated deeply with their message, finding inspiration in the twins' ability to transform pain into purpose. One reviewer wrote, "This isn't just a story, it's a blueprint for anyone looking to rise above challenges and make a difference." Despite their achievements, Marcus and Michael never lost sight of their roots. Every December, they returned to St. Reginald's Academy to host a special holiday event for current students. Dubbed Unity Reunion, the gathering brought together alumni, teachers, and families to celebrate progress and reaffirm commitments to inclusivity. During one such reunion, Brandon, the former bully turned ally, spoke candidly about how the twins had changed his life. "I used to think being strong meant intimidating others," he admitted, his voice steady yet emotional. "But Marcus and Michael showed me that real strength is about lifting people up. Without them, I don't know where I'd be today." His words echoed throughout the auditorium, drawing applause and tears alike. It was moments like these that reminded Marcus and Michael why they had dedicated their lives to helping others. Their legacy wasn't measured by awards or accolades. It was woven into the fabric of the lives they touched. Back home, their parents watched with pride as their sons continued to inspire generations. Their mother often joked, "I knew those boys were destined for greatness, but I didn't expect them to change the world." Their father simply nodded, his eyes glistening with emotion. Even their grandfather, now in his late 80s, remained actively involved, occasionally joining the twins to teach lessons at Rising Warriors events. "Discipline builds character," he would say, his voice as firm as ever. "And character changes lives." Though their paths diverged professionally, Marcus pursued a career in social work while Michael became a motivational speaker. They remained inseparable in spirit. They still shared everything, from ideas for new initiatives to quiet moments, reminiscing about their childhood. On weekends, they often visited their old neighborhood, walking past the tree-lined streets where they had dreamed of bigger things. Sometimes they stopped at the park where they used to train under their grandfather's watchful eye, practicing moves and laughing like they were kids again. Through all their accomplishments, Marcus and Michael stayed grounded. They understood that true leadership wasn't about standing above others but walking alongside them. This philosophy guided every decision they made, ensuring that Rising Warriors remained rooted in authenticity and compassion. By the time they reached their mid-30s, the twins had become household names. Yet, they refused to let fame alter their mission. Instead, they doubled down on their commitment to service, expanding Rising Warriors internationally. Programs launched in countries facing systemic inequality provided resources and support to marginalized communities. Local instructors trained by Marcus and Michael carried forward the vision, creating ripple effects that transcended borders. One particularly impactful project took place in a rural village in Kenya. There, a group of girls practiced martial arts under the guidance of a local teacher mentored by Michael. Many of these girls had been discouraged from pursuing education or sports due to cultural norms, but Rising Warriors gave them a platform to defy expectations. When Marcus visited the village to lead a workshop, he was overwhelmed by the warmth and gratitude of the community. "You've given us courage," one girl said, presenting him with a handmade bracelet. "Now we can stand tall, just like you." Her words stayed with Marcus long after he left the village, reinforcing his belief in the power of collective action. He realized then that their work wasn't just about changing individual lives. It was about dismantling barriers that held entire communities back. As the years passed, Marcus and Michael reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From the painful days of bullying at St. Reginald's to the triumphant heights of global advocacy, they had come full circle. They had faced hatred with love, fear with courage, and division with unity. Along the way, they had inspired thousands and, in turn, had been inspired by the resilience of those they served. On a crisp autumn evening, as they sat together on the porch of their childhood home, Marcus broke the silence. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't gone to St. Reginald's?" Michael smiled softly. "Maybe we wouldn't have learned what we did." Sometimes the hardest places teach us the most important lessons. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Though their story had humble beginnings, its ending was anything but ordinary. Through perseverance, empathy, and unwavering dedication, Marcus and Michael had transformed not only their own lives, but also the lives of countless others. Their legacy, a testament to the power of resilience and kindness, would endure for generations to come. In the end, it wasn't the titles or trophies that defined them. It was the lives they touched, the hearts they healed, and the world they helped build, one act of courage at a time.